It's my great pleasure to welcome my friend, Renee Schulte. Renee has over 20 years of leadership experience in the mental health field at the national, state, and provider levels. Her work in the public and private sectors has given her a unique understanding of the complexities in this area. Renee is nationally recognized for her expertise in behavioral health policy, system design, policy and financial analysis, and strategic consulting. As a licensed mental health therapist, Renee has worked in many levels of care, including psychiatric hospital, child welfare, and therapeutic foster care. As a legislator, she spearheaded the passage of the mental health redesign in Iowa. She began Schulte Consulting, LLC, in 2012. As a consultant, she has worked with multiple states regarding creating strategic plans, legislation, and regulations. She has also used her expertise and unique background in government relations and consulting for both nonprofit and for-profit providers of healthcare services. And I should say that she is part of our lobbying team, and really the most integral part of our lobbying team, and has been. We're going into our fourth session together. So Renee is a trusted advisor and friend, and we're so very pleased to have her sharing with us today. She's done this presentation for a lot of different groups, and it's always well received, very valuable information. Renee and her husband, Brett, reside in Urbandale, so she's right here in the metro. Renee, we currently have 50 participants, and I'm sure we're going to be having more joining us. So welcome, Renee.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, everybody. What Peggy said, I can't believe she says all those great things about me. That doesn't even feel true most of the time. But today I just want you to know that this presentation is actually brand new just for you because Peggy asked for it. And so I created it. And so I'm excited to share with you what we're going to be calling Healthy Holidays and Beyond, tips for self-care from a pro. Peggy named that herself. She calls me a pro in this area, and I appreciate that. But it's been a lot of fun to put this together for you. So I hope you're excited to be here. I hope you're ready to laugh. I hope you're ready to have a good time, because we're not going to just do our regular PowerPoint presentation. This is going to actually have some interaction, and hopefully you'll be able to actually use the chat to talk back to me so I can hear what you're thinking as we go. But I just wanted to let you know that we are going to be talking about self-care, and some people like talking about self-care and some people don't. But I want to talk about, first off, what do you find most stressful about the holidays this year? Maybe generally, what do you find most stressful? And then this year specifically, what's most stressful? Anybody would be willing to be brave and put that in the chat for me? I hope I can see your chat. Oh, I got some chats coming in. I'm so grateful for that. Thank y'all. All right. So avoiding COVID. Yep. Telling family you're not going home to celebrate. Oh my gosh. Yep. That's hard. Yep. Anybody else want to talk about this? What's stressful in the holidays? Besides COVID, what else is stressful though about holidays? It's not just COVID. Most years can be difficult. Anybody else have any other types of things? Oh, finances, traveling, not traveling. Here they come. They're all coming in now. That's right. There's so many things that are stressful about the holidays, and maybe not knowing the best gifts, or maybe not having the money to get gifts, or maybe not being able to get to where your family's from, maybe not being able to see the people that you want to see, right? All of these things. Thank you guys so much for participating. This is going to be a lot of fun. So I hope you do get to participate. And if you think something's funny, feel free to say so. And if you think it's oh, that's terrible, say that too, because all those reactions make me laugh and help me have a good time. You can guess, after doing presentations all the time, and I don't get to see your faces, I end up just kind of getting, talking to myself. And so I love the chat box, so y'all can chat back with me. I appreciate that very much. So let's talk a little bit about my holidays, or my story, and related to stress. So a lot of you may not know this, but in 2013, I had a major health episode. I was formerly a legislator. I did all that stuff Peggy talked about fixing the mental health system, but I was going to run for Congress. And a lot of people don't know this, but I was ready to run for Congress, going to launch a congressional campaign. And I ended up in the hospital. and I ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks with big time problems. My lungs were full of stuff they thought was pneumonia. I had a gallbladder that ended up being full of gangrene. I don't even know how that happens. And I turned yellow. It was one of those things where they wheel you into the hospital and they don't even stop at the desk. They just are like, just keep going. That's how bad it was. And so I had this horrible illness, and it was looking backwards. It all started actually a few years before that in the flood of Cedar Rapids. If everybody remembers the floods of 2008, and there was a tornado in Parkersburg that went with that. And I remember just being in the helping profession, a lot like you, and just worked my tail off from 2008 forward. And in that, I forgot to take care of myself, and I just crashed and burned. So when we talk today about self-care, I have rebuilt my life to good health. I am no longer have the chronic illnesses I had back then. And it's taken 5 to 7 years of actually working really hard at that, which is where Peggy talks about me being a pro. I mean, it is something I hope to help you learn so that you don't have to do the 5 years of rehab that it took me to get back to here. But how does that impact my holidays? I can't be around other people. A lot of people think that because I'm younger, oh, you're going to be healthy, you'll be fine. But no, I don't need COVID. My doctors tell me like this. It's like one of two things. Either I could get it and not have a lot of symptoms because I'm younger, or I get it and then it's really severe because of the severe double pneumonias I've had in the past. I don't know about you, but I'm not willing to take that chance. And so my holidays are pretty much scrapped. I don't have family to go to, people to really be around due to COVID. So I'm in this story with you. So as we talk about this today, just be thinking, this is the life I'm living. So why are we stressed out during the holidays? And this is done pre-pandemic. Though this is what's going on before COVID. But 64% of the population was moderately stressed about holidays before COVID. I'm sure right now it's even higher. I just found the number today from the last week of October to the first part of November. 44% of Iowans, 44% would be diagnosed as either anxious or depressed in Iowa. Typically, that's 11%. So we've gone from 11% of Iowans on a typical year to 44% right at the beginning of the month. That is a lot of people that could be diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And so you can see this slide right here. I mean, there's only like 16% of people normally not stressed at all. But I'm telling you, it really is a big deal. And so why are we so stressed out? So I saw some of your list before, but just look at this slide here for a second. Finances top the list. You have finances, maybe strained relationships with family, man, that to-do list. I don't have a to-do list this year. I'm not buying gifts or nothing. So my to-do list kind of got squashed, but normally trying to get work done, trying to get out of town, trying to do all the things, right? So you can just keep going, missing people, losing loved ones, being by yourselves, not being able to talk to people, maybe missing your friend or your loved one. And this year in COVID, this is even a bigger problem. So if you're feeling stressed in the holidays, you are okay. We feel stressed in the holidays. And this year we feel even more. So we're going to talk about what does this look like? And then what can we do about it? Because it's so true. So think about this holiday stress. We talked about all of this a little bit, but holiday gatherings are going to be difficult, even without the pandemic. I love my family, but I'm here to tell you, we're a bunch of nut jobs, and I don't fall far from that tree. And we get all together, and I start acting like I used to a long time ago when I was around some of those people that I don't act like that anymore. And it's kind of this reaction to other people. There's a lot of family stress, and that's normal. But in a pandemic, it's even more so. So like this year, for example, my brother has a 5-year-old who goes to school every day. And my parents have been in seclusion pretty much since March. And so he doesn't want to bring the kids home. He doesn't want to bring them into my parents' house because he doesn't want to make my parents sick. He's like, I don't want to be responsible for killing grandma or grandpa. That's a terrible thought, but nobody wants to do that, right? And so maybe some other people, there's just nowhere to go. Maybe you don't have that family or friends or people to celebrate with. So there's a lot of stress. And I don't know about you, but when I go home, this is how I feel. Oh man, I am being tested. Because I tell you what, sometimes my parents act like I'm still 10 and want to tell me what to do. And I'm a little more independent than that. And so I get a little frustrated sometimes when I go home. But this year, I don't even get to do that. So what else is going on with the holiday stress? So what can we do that's different? I read a lot of your quotes here. So start thinking about what could we do? This is a time that we really need to be more empathetic and kind to people. We don't know what somebody else is dealing with, right? There's so many changes in the world right now, so many things that are just not going the way we thought they would, that anybody, anytime is going to have that look in their eye that they just can't take one more thing. So the more kind we can be and the more empathy we can give, the better off it's going to be. Because it's really natural to be stressed. And it's really natural to have grief right now, especially if you can't get to do what you want to do. And I'm going to give you a little tip early, but if you don't deal with that grief, it's going to come out in all kinds of ways that's not going to look good. Because if you don't acknowledge the loss of maybe the tradition, the family, the gathering, it's going to come out, whether that's in a physical manifestation and headaches or blood pressure increases or increased drinking. It could be a lot of different things. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about that here in just a second. But also don't think that everybody's family is perfect. That's not a thing. I don't even know what the normal family is. What's normal, right? It's just a word. So my family used to be one of those that we'd look real cute in pictures, right? My parents would work real hard to get us to look cute in a picture. And in that little screen, we'd look real perfect. But behind the scenes, we're like killing each other and like duking it out on the way to the picture and duking it out on the way past the picture and all that stuff, but looking just like, that we're supposed to be beautiful and perfect was only in that two-dimensional piece of paper. The real story was never that. And most people thought we were the, quote, perfect family. That's no such thing. All right, so what does holiday stress look like? And this is where I want you to spend a little bit of time. I know it's kind of a busy slide, but let's kind of work our way around this. 45% of Americans dread the holiday season, just off the top. And that's before a pandemic. That's a lot of people that dislike the holidays. Women, more likely than men, are negatively affected during the holiday season. Oftentimes women have more pressures put on them. Maybe they're the ones having to get the house ready or get the meals ready or even get all the shopping done or whatever. Ladies got a lot of stuff put on their plate. But you start looking in the middle here, you're going to see that people feel an increase in stress like we talked about. That stress about not giving the right gift we saw in the chat earlier, that's 46%. About half people just are worried about not being able to give gifts, or eating to try to reduce stress. Over half of us just eat to try to get stress to go down. And then get toward the bottom, you're looking at the number of people that drink. Alcohol use goes up tremendously during the holiday seasons. And I learned a new term. I didn't know this, but did you know the Thursday before Thanksgiving is called Blackout Wednesday? I mean, no, that didn't make any sense. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving is called Blackout Wednesday. Well, didn't make any sense at all. But the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. More people drink the Wednesday before Thanksgiving than New Year's Eve and St. Patrick's Day. I didn't even know that was a thing. But they drink because they've got typically long weekends where they can, recover. So that's called Blackout Wednesday. And so there's more people getting arrested, maybe not this year during a pandemic. So maybe that's a good part of the pandemic. I don't know. But typically more people are arrested for drunken driving on Wednesday before Thanksgiving than any other day of the year. And we don't think about that. We think it's always New Year's or St. Patrick's Day. And then before I leave this slide, just that bottom corner starts talking about seasonal affective disorder. And as the days get shorter and they get darker, this is real. And so that's why we talk about holidays and beyond. Some of this deck today is about holidays, but then there's this other piece that if you're not really paying attention to the stress in your life, that piece beyond that starts going into January, this starts getting long. And the winter gets long and the winter gets dark. And so if you're the person that's impacted by that, you've got to do a little bit extra to help yourself as you try to move forward through this season. It's going to be really important. So, hey, you guys are doing awesome in the chat. So put in the chat, what do you think of when you hear the words self-care? Sometimes that sounds like it's kind of fluffy. Sometimes that sounds like we know what we're talking about. But what is self-care? Taking time for yourself, sleep and eating, meditation, giving yourself grace. Oh man, you've got some great answers. You guys are awesome. Activities that feed the soul, unplugging, putting your priorities first, alone time. Oh man, you guys are good at this. Yeah, something you enjoy instead of what you have to do. Journaling, massage, showers. Yeah, long showers or a bath. Fantastic. Man, you guys are good at this. But here, let me show you what I think about self-care. Maybe. Do you think of this? Isn't that awesome? This guy's cracked me up. So hopefully it makes you smile. But deep breathing, right? We think about deep breathing. We think about, and Jack Black. You can never go wrong with him. Or how about you think about this one? Everybody remember Chandler Bing from the Friends back in the 90s? His big bubble bath. He's having a very, very long day, right? So some of these things could be really good ideas, right? So deep breathing isn't a bad idea. And, having a bubble bath isn't a bad idea either. And so sometimes you might think that some of these, but let's really think about self-care. And for me, I think about this in A's and B's and C's, the ABCs. It makes it nice and simple. And so we're going to spend some time today just talking about these different areas. And I'm going to help you talk to me back in the chat about what kind of things can we do to take care of ourselves a little bit better? Because here's the thing, you already know the holidays are stressful. The deck you saw, the information you saw, 65% of people think the holidays are stressful. That's before a pandemic. So you add the pandemic on top of that, everybody around you is stressed and you're stressed. Whether your body feels it, knows it or not, it is stressed out. And so you need to be thinking about how in the world can I handle this? And what they're finding, the research is showing, talking about surge capacity. I don't know if you've ever heard the term surge capacity, but in your body, you have the capacity for you to work through a crisis. But think about it like a tornado or when the derecho came through. Your body has the capacity for an extended period of time to deal with the increased stress, that chronic stress that comes in. So it's not the short thing like somebody cut you off in traffic, your heart rate went up and it comes back down in 15 minutes. Not like that. Surge capacity is, had a tornado, got a hole in my roof, and it's going to take me a month or so to get it down, and surge capacity goes back down. So it's a longer stretch. Well, the pandemic has blown through your surge capacity. You don't have that anymore. So if you feel like you're foggy, you feel like you're fatigued, you feel like you're exhausted, you are, because your body is not equipped to do 9 months of COVID. And we're just at the beginning. The numbers today are worse than when we started this mess. And so we are not designed as a human to do 9 months of crazy and add on however many more months of crazy without your body having to adapt and adjust. So when you're thinking about self-care here, if the things you like to do in self-care that we talked about before aren't working, you need to tweak, because you need to do something to shift how you have been handling it, because your body is in a new territory, in a new level of stress it doesn't normally adapt to. So it's going to need something different. That's not a lot more. It's still within your control, but it may be something that you haven't done before, that maybe now you need to try something different because it's already adapted to what you've already been doing. So if you're already doing some self-care, your body's like, yep, that's awesome, but you need to add to it or shift it, shake it up a little bit. You know how your body gets accustomed to an exercise routine and you may lose weight for a little bit, and then after a few weeks, it kind of plateaus. You have to shake it up. Same is true with your stress response. So just because you're doing what you've always done may not be cutting it. So when you're looking at this, look at this through new eyes about, okay, what else could I do? What else could I try that maybe I could add to my body, add to what I haven't tried before to see if it makes a difference, because it's not going to hurt. You're not going to hurt yourself doing too much self-care. It's just not a thing. So what else could you try? So of course your A is your activities. So let's think about activities. So in a general sense, you need to get moving or set up a time to relax. I'm a person that goes and goes and goes and goes, hence my burnout story, right? So I've had to teach myself to relax and actually put it in the calendar, make it a goal. Like actually, that's why it's in an activity for me. For some people, relaxing is just like second nature, but it's not for me. And then research shows that if you go outside, you improve your immunity, you increase your mindfulness, you calm your heart rate down just by being outside. So think about for a second, like movement for yourself. What kind of movement do you enjoy doing? What could that be? Now, this could be the classic exercise or walking. But what else could it be? Anybody in the chat? When you're saying movement, what could that be? It doesn't have to just be your mom's workout class. It just doesn't. So what else could it be? Dancing. Yeah. Dancing in the kitchen. Using the radio. Yep. Dancing is a great one. Housework. Right. Moving around doing the housework. Stretching throughout the day. Chasing grandkids. Absolutely, Penny. That's awesome. I love that one. Yeah. Oh, walking the dogs, Amy. That's a good suggestion. If you've got dogs, they just help in so many ways, right? Yep. And gardening. Perfect. So you talk about movement. It doesn't have to be the traditional, you got to get your 30 minutes and get your heart rate up to such and such, although that's awesome. And it does help with your stress. It doesn't have to be that. Relaxation, some ideas of what else you could do. There's things there. So my image for you here is Barney Bear. Anybody remember Barney Bear from the old school cartoons? What I love about Barney in this is he's getting activity while he's relaxing, reading his book, and he's outside. So he's like got the trifecta of this going on. He's like doing a little bit of exercising, a little bit of reading, relaxing, and outdoors at the same time, right? So if you can find things that you love to do that takes you in more of those categories at once, you get all the benefits more than once. So let's think about this. What type of winter activity is your favorite? Because in Iowa, sometimes we think, oh my gosh, it's cold, so we can't do anything. And that's not true. So what do you like to do for winter activities? When it gets colder, gets darker, what can you do? And if it's outside, that's even more of a bonus, because you saw that if we do activity plus outside, we get double benefits. Yoga by the fire, that sounds fantastic. Ice skating, feeding the birds, there we go. Hot chocolate, board games. You do like the snowblower. I actually like the shovel. I have a funny story. In my neighborhood, I'm one of the younger ones in my neighborhood, and there's this guy, older guy down the street last year, maybe it was 2 years ago now, but he took his low riding car and went through the end of the drive. They got stuck at the end of the street. And I was out shoveling, and I had a hat on and whatever. And I went over to push him out, and he looked at me and figured out that he's like, you had that look that you're a girl kind of look. And I'm like thinking, well, what do you want me to do? To push you out or leave you stuck here in the snowdrift? So I did push him out, but it was just hilarious because he's like, you shouldn't be the one to come do this. And luckily I was in a good mood because I just said, I will push. But if I'd have been in a bad mood, I'd been like, okay, just stay here in your snowdrift until you find some man to come push you. But I did not act like that. I just said, you're welcome, and pushed him out anyway. So sometimes it's shoveling, stargazing, snowmen. I love making snowmen. That is so much fun. I love doing that. One year I went out with my nephew and he was doing slides down. We had a winter slide. He lives in Minnesota. So we cleared the slide so he could slide off. And I made these tiny snowmen at the bottom of the slide, and I'd stack them up and then he'd slide down and kick them. I have the best videos of him giggling, laughing, just carrying on, because I'd build them up and he'd just slide down and knock them all down like he was bowling snowmen. And so just kind of make up your outdoor games, right? So any of those kinds of things are things that you can do to get that activity in, all right? So the next one, back to your ABCs, is B for boundaries. Now, boundaries in my world is a little different than what you might think of. So the first one really is what you think about. You're saying no to some things, and that's okay. So there's sometimes you need to say no, and you might be tapped out. And in this season with COVID and all the things going on, you know what? You may have to just say no. And so think, what are some of the things we're saying no to right now with COVID, with pandemic? What are some of the things that you've had to say no to that maybe you don't normally say no to, but in this season, you're like, you know what, I need to not do that right now to take care of myself. What are some of those kinds of things that you've got going on in your life right now that you're like, I'm gonna say no to that for a minute. Going places in person. Yep. Playing volleyball. Yep. I love my gym. I'm just not okay with going to the gym right now. I just don't think that would be the best place for me. I love the pool, but it's really humid, and I know viruses live in humid air. I just don't think that's a good idea. Yeah. Dinner out with friends, right? Drinks with coworkers, right? Eating out at restaurants. Yep, you have to do takeout. Yeah. So you've got to say no to some things, right? And when it comes to holidays, you know, maybe you have to say no. So like in my family, my parents kept saying we should come to their house, come to their house, come to their house. And my parents are in their 70s. My dad's a cancer survivor. My mom needs a hip replacement. There's just no good idea about us coming to the house. And everybody comes in from a distance. So you pretty much just sit in my parents' living room for 3 days, right? And there's kids from 4 states that would come together, sit in the living room at my parents and breathe on them for 3 days. And do you know how hard it was to set boundaries in that and be like, look, that's not a good idea. And everybody was so hoping it would be a good idea. And I appreciate that. And I so want to be with your family, but is it really safe? Is it really smart? And so sometimes we're like, you know what, I'm going to pull out. I'm not going. My brother in Minnesota, he's not going either. Now I still have a brother and a sister that are insisting on getting together, which is fine for them, but they're not going to do it at my parents' house. So we're not going to get my parents sick. So, you know, we had to make some boundaries, right? We had to set up some, I'm not doing those things. The next boundary in my life is sleep. I have to get a certain amount of sleep a night to be a productive human being the next day. And so that requires me turning off what time I do things at night so I can go to sleep so that I can get up in the morning. And I actually put boundaries around that because my husband's a night owl and he would love to be up all night and love for me to stay up and watch TV with him and whatever. But I wake up still at the same early time in the morning, whether I went to bed early or late, and then I'm miserable the next day. So for me, I've had to set boundaries around that. Other boundaries that come with that is like how much caffeine I can ingest, how many drinks of alcohol I can have. All of that impacts my sleep. So I actually have to be thoughtful about, I can do whatever I want, right? But do you want to do it and be able to sleep and to feel good? Or is it going to be terrible and you're going to really regret it tomorrow and not be sharp for your job or whatever? And so for me, sleep is a boundary. And then number 3, the food and drink. Again, caffeine and alcohol are 2 of those pieces, but I have to choose what I eat. And there's certain foods. Oh, tell me this one in the chat. What is the food or drink that if you start drinking or eating it, you can't stop? Oh, please tell me I'm not the only one that has one of these. But what are the foods that if you start, you can't stop? Because it's just so awesome. Ice cream, sweets, sangria, jalapeno kettle chips, Cheez-Its, chocolates. Yes, pickle dips, M&Ms, chips and dips, potato chips. Oh man, so many things. Yeah, pop and candy. Yep. Oh man, so many good things. Peggy loves Ben & Jerry's Chunky Monkey. That sounds delicious. For me, it's soda. It's Coke and Diet Coke. I cannot moderate that. It's just impossible. I have numerous times thought, well, I have not had one of these for this long. I will try one. Then I'm drinking like 44-ounce big gulps, 2 or 3 a day and up all night because I can't sleep. I mean, I cannot do one. I can do a bunch, real good. And I can do none. Okay. But one is not a choice. And so I've had to say, that's a boundary for me. I can't do this because I can't control it. I can't do it. My big food thing is peanut butter, those Reese's peanut butter, anything shaped. So they normally the peanut butter cups, and now they're the trees for Christmas, and they were the pumpkins for Thanksgiving and Halloween, and then they'll be whatever shape for some other month. And if I eat one of those, I eat packages of those. And so I have to decide, is it worth it to me to start it up again? Once I've got it under control, it's like, do I want to take that chance that I can't quit? But let me tell you, man, nut thins and jalapeno cream cheese, that sounds delicious. Maybe I shouldn't be asking for ideas, but you guys got some good suggestions. So yeah, so let's think about what do we need to do? So holiday self-care, that whole thing about learning to say no. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to focus on what you can do, and you do have to set boundaries. And so there's some really good things there to be thinking about that. And then with sleep, I love this little dude. He's so cute. But sleep, this is when I just wouldn't be good without sleep. And I'd be like that little guy in the middle of a Zoom, because Zoom fatigue is real, right? You get tired of looking at screens all day. And I'd be like, out if I'm not paying attention to getting that sleep. And here's my slide on Blackout Wednesday that I was telling you about. I forgot where I stuck it in the deck, but this is a real thing, so I wanted you to see it. It talks about here binge drinking on Thanksgiving. People home to celebrate. University kids are going home with their families. And this is a bigger drinking day than New Year's Eve and St. Patrick's Day. And it's more prevalent in urban areas and the top drunk driving night of the year in some areas. And we don't think about that at all. So just making sure that you know that I didn't make that up. It's really a thing. So next week, stay off the roads on Wednesday if you don't want to get run over. But I saw somebody up there saying that we're drinking more during the pandemic. And that's really true too. But this is your normal holiday drinking facts. 96% of people went to work hungover after a holiday party or knew someone who did. Almost everybody went hungover after a holiday party or knew somebody that did. That's crazy. And not 60% of people thinking that alcohol makes your party more fun. I mean, you just go through, these are your regular holiday drinking facts. And this year in Iowa, our drinking rates are even higher. I think it's 40%. And the numbers are really skewed toward middle-aged women. Unfortunately, we have decided to outdrink ourselves at a much higher rate than we normally do before pandemic and are getting ourselves into all kinds of trouble doing so. Lots of weight gain, lots of high blood pressure, lots of bad quality sleep. And just in case you forgot and you don't remember, what happens when you start with bad quality sleep? It messes up your cortisol system and with the stress and lack of sleep. And lack of sleep, what it does is it doesn't let your body repair in the middle of the night. So your adrenal glands and all of those things don't get the refreshment they need at night, which means the next day you end up wide awake again, and you never really repaired yourself overnight. And what happens is you start putting weight on around your belly, around your hips, and it's all related, can be back to lack of sleep. Lack of sleep can set all these chain reactions and then it becomes a spiral, because then you can't sleep, because then you're wide awake and then you can't sleep. And so it just kind of gets all out of control. So back in the chat, what kind of boundaries do you need to set this holiday? One boundary I know, I'm not eating a Reese's peanut butter tree. Nope, not one, because I can't do it. So what kind of boundary are you setting? That's a simple one, but what kind of boundary do you need to set for this holiday that you think, you know what, I really need to think about what I could do to help myself and others? What could you do? Sticking to calorie counts, a great idea. Not fighting with family, super. Moderate eating, catching up on sleep. Yep. So maybe you just need a bedtime that you're like, I'm going to go to bed at this time for so many days in a row. Eating in front of the TV. Yep. Sleep. Any of these boundaries would make a big deal for you, because it's when you start setting one good boundary, it can help you kind of continue moving forward on other things. Exercising instead of making more cookies. I guess you could dance in the kitchen while making cookies. I don't know. Some self-care and cookies. Yeah, I know I can't eat more cookies. So good job. So you can see how boundaries would be helpful to you, and how setting in some new ones would be really good for what you're trying to do, and trying just to get you to get through the holidays better. So remember, again, your regular stressful holiday is now amped up with pandemic on top of it. So if there's things that you're like, well, I normally try this, well, tweak it a little bit and be like, okay, what could I do that's new? That's maybe something different that I haven't tried before, that I haven't done. Think about that, because you're going to need to kind of do something different to get through this lack of surge capacity that we've got going on. All right. And finally, in your ABCs, we had activities and boundaries, and now we're going into connections. And this is the one I think that people grieve the most over for this particular season in the pandemic. Our connections, typically what we need to think about is how to cultivate relationships. And so right now in this season, we've not been around people that we normally care about, the people that we want to really be around. And it's been very, very difficult for people to have a struggle in this season. So what could you do, or what have you done in COVID to keep your relationships going? In the chat, can you guys tell me what are we trying to do right now that maybe we haven't done it before, or we're doing it different? How do you stay connected when you're not working in your office, or you're only in your office part-time? What are you trying to do to see people? Yep. Lots of technology using, videos with others, Marco Polos and telephone calls and Teams and group chats. Yeah. FaceTime. Yep. And so you just have to think about how do we, the relationships are still so important. So when we know they're so important, but yet we can't do them in the same way, you have to be creative and think outside the box, because you actually have to, like, what else could we try, right? And developing your spiritual muscle, you may have a belief in your spiritual beliefs, or you use it for meditation or for quiet time or for journaling or for gratitude. So one of the things I want to think about right now is we have lost some things in this season. So take a minute, I'm going to be quiet for a second, and think about, what have I lost that actually kind of bothers me that it's gone right now in this season? All right, so you feel what that feels like, right? There's some grief, there's some heaviness there. Okay, now the key to that grief and loss is to flip the other side to gratitude. So for a second, let's be quiet and think, what am I thankful for? What am I grateful for in this crazy, weird season we're in? Yeah. And so when you get to the space and you feel loss and you feel grief because of changes in your schedule, your routine, your friends, your abilities to do holidays, all that's real. And if you don't acknowledge it, bad things happen. We've talked about that. And the flip to that is to be grateful. So that's where I'm talking about here, about developing your spiritual muscle. Put in the chat, what can we be grateful for right now? There's some crazy, weird things that are actually able to do differently and more because we're in COVID, which is crazy, I know, but true statement. Yeah, more time with family and friends. You've got good health because you're not out with other people. Watching your little person grow. That's amazing. Home is more peaceful. More time in your yard and outside. Yeah, my commute time is a minute. I come from upstairs to downstairs. I don't have to drive. I don't have to get in my normal fits of road rage, all those things, right? So there's some really great things going on. And then in this section also is talking about asking for help. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I want you to really think about that we're isolated because of health, but we don't have to be alone. We don't have to be, it's different, but it doesn't have to be where you're isolated. So two things I want you to think about is, for yourself, you may be more isolated and more alone than usual, but so are a lot of other people. And so who should we be checking in with? So in this situation, we're talking about cultivating relationships. Who do we need to check in on? So after the election, I have a lot of friends that election in Iowa's election, I'm not talking national, didn't go their way. And, I made sure to check in on people. I just make sure they're okay. I mean, I don't want an election to get between me and my friends. Elections shouldn't have that much importance in your life. I should just tell you. But for some people it does. And so you check in and be like, are you okay? Do you want to vent about that? You want to rage about that? You want to yell about that? But some people do. So there's some people in your life, though, that are more isolated. My parents are now, at home, and the kids, we can't see them. And so I make conscious efforts to call way more often than I used to, because, I don't want to be weeks before I hear from my parents, right? So you have to think about, how do you do that? And then back to that, developing your spiritual muscle, taking time for yourself. When is the last time you sat down in a holiday season? It's like, you know what? I'm going to spend this time doing something for me. I'm going to, do what I want to do today. Or, I really like wrapping Christmas presents. I enjoy doing that. So sometimes I find, well, I don't know if they're out there this year, but typically if there's wrapping stations or whatever, I don't buy enough gifts for enough people to make it, a lot of wrapping at my own house, but I might go wrap for somebody else. Or, if somebody's family has a bunch of kids and they're afraid they're going to find all the Christmas gifts, you can store them at my house and I'll wrap them for you. So, that's something that I think is fun in the holiday season, that, it's not a big thing, but it just lets me listen to music and, wrap presents, that kind of thing. So if you say you had an extra hour of downtime in your day, okay, picture this. You had a free hour. Somebody canceled, something happened, kids went away, you have an hour. What would you use it for? In the chat. What would you do with your hour? If you had an extra hour today, what would you do? Take a nap. Yes. Read a book. Yep. Somebody said they'd just breathe. Yep. Awesome. Lots of great suggestions. Paint your nails. Yeah. That's one thing I gave up. I used to get my nails done outside of the house all the time. And I'm not going to go get breathed on. So that's the thing. I had to go, oh, watch The Crown. I heard that's a great show. I haven't had a chance to watch it either. Yeah. So if you had that extra hour, so what would it look like this next week that's a holiday week to put in your calendar a little box and make yourself an hour? I mean, how exciting is that? Give yourself a gift for Thanksgiving with an extra little hour and be like, that's my hour. And I'm going to do what you want to do in that hour, right? There's no judgment. It's your hour. And you get extra time. And taking that downtime is so, so important because your body really is higher stress than what you know it is. And it doesn't know. It's feeling all of this, whether you think you're feeling it or not, it's there. And so how do we help your body deal with the stress is you've got to slow down a minute to let yourself feel and let yourself know. And the last one in this section was asking for help. And I know a lot of us are helpful people because we are in NAMI and we care about people and we may be helpers ourselves. But the helpers, I'm here to tell you, we suck at asking for help. We're the worst and we know better. We tell people to ask for help and we don't do it. So let me give you just a glimpse. Let's go back to my story about burnout and crash. So I was in a hospital for over 2 weeks. I came out and was on an IV for multiple days. I had to go to infusions for a while, and then I was on meds for about a year, turned my hair curly. It took a year's worth of medication to get the infection out of my lungs. So then starts rehab. So there's lots of people that had to be part of my team for help. Just off the top of my head, I could use, let's see, I used physical therapists. I used personal trainers. I had a nutritionist. I've had various coaches. I've had chiropractor. I've had functional medicine doctors. I have a hormone doctor that I love right now. I have therapists. I've had mentors. I've had friends. I mean, it took a cadre of folks. Now, I didn't go out and just hire 12 people. That's not what I'm talking about. But I had to find people along the journey for the next step and ask for help. I'm like, look, I was a mess. I mean, my body did not work at that point. And so there was like, okay, there's a couple of choices. You're going to be on medicines for the rest of your life, or you get yourself together. And I'm here to tell you, I'm in remission of everything that I had, and I'm on no medication for it. None. And I did that with help of other people. I didn't have the know-how to do that myself. And now I follow directions pretty good. So when people say, do this, don't do that. Yeah, I would do that. But you have to ask for help. So the kind of help you need may not be, it may not be a therapist. It may not be that, but it may be something else. So in the chat, what kind of help, if you could get it, maybe it's somebody to clean the house, or maybe it's somebody to watch your kids. Maybe it's somebody to help you do virtual school. If you could get some help right now, just one kind of help, what kind of help could really make a difference in your life? A cleaning lady, yes. Yeah. Clean and declutter. Ooh, there was a season, not when I crashed, but there was a season I got an organizer, a declutter person. That's another funny story. I'll tell you in a second. But a virtual school teacher. Yeah. A housekeeper. Right. Maybe it's a coach. Maybe it's an online kind of class that you could do, workout class that you could follow online because you can't maybe go to your gym or whatever. Yeah. Lots of things. When I was in the legislature, the issue was we were losing mail, and I was in Cedar Rapids where I lived at the time, and I would drive to Des Moines, and I'd stay in Des Moines from Sunday night to Thursday night, and I'd come back on weekends, and that would be from January through April or May, sometimes into June when we were all fighting about stuff. And so I found my Valentine's Day card from my parents in April one year. And that also meant that we had bills that didn't get paid. So like they were going to turn off our water, going to turn off our electric, different things, not because we weren't in the possibility to pay for it, but because we lost the mail. I don't know if anybody's been there but me. And what I had to do was bring somebody in to help us create a system. The symptom was lost mail, but they came in and helped declutter and help create systems so that we knew where to put the mail and got some stuff cleaned up. So that's a real thing. So if you've got somebody that, you need some help with decluttering, some people love that, right? They've got the gift for it. Invite them in. They don't, you have to pay for them. I love helping people declutter now that I have a clue, and you don't have to pay me. I think it's fun. So I'll help people clean out their pantry, or I'll do whatever, because I think that stuff's fun sometimes to help serve somebody else. So you don't have to think about this and, well, I'd have to have the money to do this. The same thing's true, like if you need help with virtual classes, maybe you trade with another family. They're talking about school pods where like neighborhoods were getting together, where kids would kind of go from house to house so that you wouldn't all have to have the kids at your house the whole day. You think about those kinds of things, what you could potentially do, and come up with like, who might be able to help me in this next piece that I need? All right, so when you know your goal, you have to change the strategy as much as necessary to meet it, but the goal itself doesn't change. So if you're trying to lose weight, there's 1,000 opportunities out there to lose weight, and lots of them don't work, but you don't know about your own body until you try it. And if somebody tells you it's one size fits all, they're making that up. So you may have to try a strategy and be like, nope, that's not it. Try a different strategy, but you don't have to get rid of the goal of weight loss. Same is true with like getting your house decluttered. You may try a strategy. You may try like I forget the name of it. There's a couple of different apps where you can like clean a particular different part of your house every day. Fly Lady, I think, where you clean a different piece every day so that by the end of the month, you've all decluttered like a whole part of your house. Well, you may try that app and be like, that's terrible. I don't like that. Well, the goal is still to declutter. So what other strategy can you try? So you don't just give up on the strategy. You don't just give up on that goal. You keep going toward the goal, but you just keep finding who else could help me. And we just don't ask for help. So what do you need to prioritize with connections? We just talked about connections. So that's a person you may need to connect with. It's your own spiritual muscle of gratitude or journaling, connecting that way, or asking for help. Which one of those do you need to do in the chat for yourself for connecting for this season? Nobody needs to connect and do anything. That can't be true. You guys have been awesome today. Yeah. Mother and children who aren't with you. You want to actually physically connect with somebody or like make a great connection. That's a great one. Anybody else? Connection? Reconnect with God. Call with mom. Yeah. Grandparents. Right. Family members. Right. So it's not the same answer for everybody, but there's something that you can do to reconnect in the holidays. Yeah, grandkids who live 2,000 miles away. Yeah, how can you love on them and be with them when you can't be with them, right? And it may not be the way you'd like to have it, but it's still, connection is better than not, right? So as we come to the close, just to go back through your ABCs, you're going to think of activities, or boundaries, or connections. And when we leave today, before you go, we're going to pick one thing, just one, that you're going to say, I'm going to do that today. Okay. So we walk through your mind. We did the activities. We talked about going outside or exercising or relaxing, or maybe boundaries with sleep or diet, or just saying no to something, or connections. So think about that. So you're going to have to really focus on your self-care. Now, the way I know that I am a pro at self-care is I'm in COVID now and I'm not sick. And I'm very grateful and blessed for that. But I'm also not falling apart. The election was horrible. The pandemic was bad. The rate show wasn't great. But lots of people around me are not okay. Right? And so when you know you've got your self-care routine in, you're okay. And you're like, I'm doing all right. And these guys are not doing all right. So that's how you know that you've got it kind of dialed in, right? But it didn't happen overnight. It took starting with one thing. And the first thing I had to do was get my health in order, was to get a nutritionist to figure out what I should eat and shouldn't eat. I lost my gallbladder through that whole mess, and I had no idea what I was supposed to eat or not eat with my gallbladder. So I was like, okay, how do I do that, right? And then after that, I wasn't physically strong because I had been in bed for a long time. So then I had to go back to, okay, I want to work out again. How do I do that? And just one thing, right? Okay, so the last question for the day is, what are the one thing that you can take from here today? Just one that you're like, I think I could do that. It's in my control. It's easy. I can add this one thing. This one here about cut off from virtual meetings and technology 1 hour before bed. That is awesome. Your body will thank you for that, because you will be so much more ready to sleep by the time you're ready to head to bed if you don't have your eyes on screens that close. Set a bedtime. Awesome. That's a great idea. Yeah. An hour of self-care. I actually put it in my planner. Y'all think I might be making this up. This is my planner right here. I actually schedule when I'm going to take care of me. And if I get to a week that's nuts and there's nothing in there for relaxation, I'm like, ooh, I better fix that. So that it may not be something big. Maybe I take a bath before I go to bed, or maybe I, whatever. But you got to be conscious about it. Yep. So just one thing. You guys are great at this. Really good job. All right. So I don't have anything else for you. I'm just going to take questions. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You have my email address right here. If you can spell my name, you have my email. And anytime, if you are concerned about anything with self-care, this is my new passion. Because here's my pitch, folks. The workforce is stressed out. And there's no more workforce growing on trees to come help us out. So if we don't take care of ourselves and we burn out and we quit, there's a bigger void than we already have. And there's not enough of us today in the mental health field. And so I need you to agree with me that this is really important, because we need you. We need every one of you to stay in our mental health system and to help, because we need all hands on deck. It's a hot mess, we know. But it's not going to get better if half of us bail out a year from now because we're burnt to a crisp. That's not going to make this better. So we have to take care of us. And the only way we can help others is to make sure we have enough to give. If I have nothing to pour out of me, how can I help somebody else, right? So this all starts with us. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to stop sharing so we can take questions, but I'm happy to take questions if you have anything you'd like for us. Peggy's here ready to answer questions too. Thank you so much for your time, everybody.
Thank you, Renee. You're great.
Love
and I was one of those friends that Renee reached out to after the election. And I can't tell you how much that meant to me. Don't underestimate the power of reaching out to someone, even if you think, oh, they might not want to talk to me, or I don't want to impose, or I don't want to make it worse. I don't want to remind them that they're sad or they're upset or they're angry. Believe me, you won't. They're living through what they're living through, and having someone, knowing that someone is thinking of you and takes the time to reach out and say, I know this must have been rough on you. How are you doing? It just is so powerful. So
and to be transparent, it wasn't like a big thing. I just sent you a text message, right? And I did it to several people, and some it took them 24 hours to 48 to respond because they weren't okay. And then others responded more quickly. But I'm like, hey, and it also helps them know that I'm not offended if you talk about how horrible it was, and so it kind of just like lays the groundwork. It's like, look, I don't think that went the way you wanted it to, but I'm open to talking about it, because some people get into that bragging about how it went for them, or they were on the other side or whatever. And that's not me, but I just want people to know, be like, look, I know that didn't go well for you. And, I want to just make sure you're okay. And
well, someone says in the chat, Renee, I have friends in the healthcare field who say they just want someone to reach out and ask how they're doing.
That's right.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Could I do a similar session for Lincare area healthcare provider? Absolutely, I could. You have my email. So I didn't put it into this chat, into this today, but I work with COVID Recovery Iowa. And so we're doing all of these kind of things for free. So this isn't going to cost you a penny to do them. This wasn't about COVID Recovery Iowa today, so I didn't fill that up with this, but I have availability, and that is my job. My email again, I sure will.
Cynthia asked, how can I detach from work when I am working from home? Great question.
Oh, that's an awesome question.
Yeah.
So I have to shut my door in my office and leave my computer downstairs and actually don't take it upstairs.
Physically separate.
Physically. Mm-hmm. Because if I carry my computer upstairs, and I used to be really, really guilty of that. If I carried my computer upstairs, then I would just keep working. And my husband would be watching television, and I'm like, well, that's no big deal. I'll just, and it got to be where it was just 24/7 on. The second thing I have to do is this little guy right here, and he has to go into a different room. Wait, because the second thing I do is if I don't have my computer with me, I'm like, well, all my emails right here. So then I just keep on going. And again, that's not a healthy thing. So I've actually physically removed this from my bedroom. It's locked in a different room. So it's not even an option at night. I don't take any screens with me into my room because that's not a choice. So you have to physically distance. Now, my husband is newer to working at home. He's always been an office guy. And so he stinks at this because his used to be decompressed from the office to the house. That was like his time to decompress. And now it's, across the house, like one room to the other room is his office. And so he finds himself wandering back into his office now, and he can pick up working again. Where it used to be, he would have to drive to the office in order to work again before. And now he can just do it here. So it's not a good thing. So we've actually had to talk about how do we make that happen so that he can get some boundaries too, because we're both trying to help each other. And so sometimes it's leaving the house at night so that we're not tempted to go back to the office. I mean, you just have to, again, the goal doesn't change. The goal is to shut it down. So the strategy might have to change. So you may have to be like, okay, I'm going to try putting my computer downstairs, see if it works. That didn't work. I'm going to try to put my phone away, see if that works. I'm going to try to leave the house at night. So you just keep changing the strategy till you get to your goal of turning off work, because your brain will be more refreshed if you turn it off.
This will have to be our last question, but one of our participants asked, when everyone seems so stressed, when you want to vent, how do you know that you're not adding a burden to them, or maybe worrying that you're adding to their stress and their burdens?
That is a super question. So you really need to have friends that you will do that in turn with each other. Mm-hmm. And and my husband is a fixer. I don't know if you have some of those in your lives. And so he always wants to fix my problems, but sometimes, which is nice, but sometimes I just need him to hear me and to vent. And so I say, is it okay if I just vent about this for a minute? And so I'm not piling on. And some days it's not okay. Some days he's got too much on his plate and he can't take it. But other days he's like, absolutely, let it rip. And he doesn't care. And he doesn't know the people, and he thinks it's funny, and he thinks I'm ridiculous. And it goes. But just have that conversation and be like, look, I'd love to be able to vent with you, but I don't want to add stress. Sometimes people find helping you with your problem actually reduces their stress. Mm-hmm. So you could be of value to them by letting them hear your problem. We get so insulated thinking about ourselves sometimes that it seems insurmountable. But when we take a moment to help somebody else, you feel better. So if you guys do that with each other, it's like, you know what? Let's set up a time and you talk for a half hour, and let's see if I can help you. And then I'll talk for a half hour about me, and just sort of trade that back and forth. And then, but actually set some boundaries around that so that you're not just dumping, and that they will find value in that. And if you find a person, you can do that together. And then the trick is just don't be having a bad day at the same time so that you're not both in a miserable spot. Try to, take turns on who's going to be the one being grumpy.
Great suggestions. I just actually had an experience with that with some friends where I had a thorny challenge in work that I was just wrestling with. I could not resolve. And we had a get together out on the deck, and we were talking about lots of different things, and just kind of in a spur of the moment, I said, hey, can I share this with you? You guys have some ideas on what, can you help me with this? and they just jumped into it, man.
Yeah.
And,
That's awesome.
they helped me resolve it, and then they felt so good.
That's
because
right.
they're like, oh, we can actually help solve something. Wow, that
right.
feels so good.
That's right.
So, you know, I think your suggestions are terrific. Well,
thanks again for the opportunity, Peggy. It was, you guys are always fun. I mean, you guys are so engaged and so plugged in. I just really, really love speaking to your group all the time. So
it's a great group, Renee. We had about 80 people throughout your session.
Wow, that's a lot.
And now you all know Renee, and you know why we love her. So you can, if you can use her in your workplace or in your setting, you know how to find her. So reach out to her. She, as you've seen, she's a great resource. Okay, so we are going to take a short break. We are all going to get back together again at 1:45 for the next round of breakout sessions. We'll see you shortly. Thanks.